Part two of today's lab is we're going to learn a little bit about scientific writing. So what I want you to do, if you haven't done so already, is look at Appendix A. And Appendix A talks about what a scientific paper is going to look like and what your lab reports are going to look like. So scientific papers and your lab reports usually are organized around the following things. So there's a title, an introduction, which gives some background information and the objectives and things like that. The methods, that's how the experiment or experiments were done. The results, that's the data, basically no interpretation. And the discussion is where you are going to interpret your data and explain why you think you saw what you saw. And then of course we have references, and we call this literature cited because we're going to use a citation system. If you don't know what a citation is, look that up. We're going to talk about it here in a minute. And in some of our labs we'll have an appendix, so that might be your rough data or a few other things. So just another note, look at Appendix A. There's lots of information there in Appendix A, and I do want you to take a look at that. One of the things you'll need to do for Part B in our Introduction to Scientific Writing is learn how to find a journal article on PubMed. So this is a little bit about PubMed. I actually have a video on this, and I'm going to introduce you to PubMed, and I'll play that for you right now. Hello, so what we want to do today is introduce you to the NCBI website, and in particular PubMed. So NCBI is the National Center for Biotechnology Information. It's actually run by the American government, but it's actually very, very international right now, and it has a huge number of resources related to biotechnology and medicine and biology and a number of other types of sciences. So if you take a look at all these resources on the left, it's talking about chemicals, software, DNA and RNA stuff, genetics, there's genomes on here, and all sorts of really cool things. I want to direct you to the right-hand side. So over here, we are going to look at PubMed. So click on that. So PubMed is a database, and it has the citation information from more than 30 million scientific journal articles. Many are in English, many in other languages. And so what you can do is search this database for all sorts of different things related to biology and medicine and biotechnology and those kind of areas. So what you do is go to the search bar, and what you're going to do, and this is something you'll need to do for the Lab 3 pre-lab assignment, and this is all kind of detailed in the Lab 1 assignment as well. And you're going to search for something related to Lab 3. So Lab 3 has to do with beetroot membranes. So you can start typing in some of those words to try to find a paper. So in this case here, maybe beet membranes. I'm actually going to search for something else. So let's try a different vegetable. Let's try, I don't know, cucumber. How about cucumber? And we're going to actually subject those beetroot membranes to temperatures and solvents, so I could put in those other words as well and see what we come up with. So if I take a look, it looks like I've come up with 29 results, and you can see 29 different papers that have been published on cucumber membranes, apparently. So one thing just to check for is over here on the left, notice I have free full text checked off here. Right here in this box. If I uncheck it, I get actually 88 results. Now the reason why I want to click on that is because many of these you may need a subscription for, and I'm assuming you don't have a subscription for all these scientific journals. So if you want to get them free, you can filter this out and just get access to the free ones. And it looks like there's plenty of them here anyway. So here are a couple of papers. Maybe we'll take a look at this first one here. If you take a look, it has the citation information. So it has the title of the paper here, has the name of the authors, so the authors' last names and followed by their first initial. Has the name of the journal here, which is Toxins Basal, I guess. The year, 2017. We don't care really too much about March 11th, but after that we have the volume number, which is 9, and it looks like it's page 100. Nowadays, a lot of articles will also have this DOI, which is the Digital Object Identifier, which is often being used in citations nowadays. So let's click on this and take a closer look. So also in PubMed, you can see a little bit more information. There's also the abstract, Sometimes it tells where these authors are from, those kind of things, and sometimes a few figures. But you can see there's the abstract. That's basically a summary of the entire article. And so it tells you a little bit more about it. So PubMed itself doesn't have the papers, it just has the citation information, but usually nowadays it will give a link to the actual journal website. So you can see, in fact, they give two links here, PMC, I'm not sure what that stands for, and it says full text open access. So let's click on one of these and take a look. So this is the journal's website itself, and it looks like there's the paper. You can read it in the web browser if you like, but usually somewhere near the top, I'm just looking for the link right here. So sometimes you got to search a little bit, and what you're looking for is the PDF version of the document. So we're going to click on that and download the PDF. So there's the PDF on my computer. I will click on that, and here it is. So you can take a look. There is the paper. It looks like it's 20 pages long. And I'm not asking you to actually read the paper. You can certainly take a look at it. What I am asking you to do is, first of all, find one. That's part of the exercise. And secondly, you're going to cite and reference it properly. So I'll just point out that in the paper itself, you've got all the proper information. We have the title. We have the names of the authors. You can see it's actually giving their first names. It tells you where they're from. I don't care where they're from. That's not important for the citation. It doesn't matter if they're in the department of whatever, in the university of wherever. That's not really that important. You can see the information, the name of the journal down here, Toxins 2017, volume 9, page 100, and so on. So what you're going to do is take that information and you're going to cite this paper, and you're going to give me the bibliographical information in the literature cited section. And I'll give you an example in the lab video here in a moment. Here's an example of a scientific paper found in PubMed. This is actually something that I published a few years ago, and I just wanted to show you what we're looking at when we see all this information here. So first of all are the authors. There's my name, Blaine Legary, and I published this with somebody named Anthony Clark. There's the name of the journal. That's an abbreviated version. The full journal name is the Journal of Bacteriology. There's the year. We don't care about the month, but we do care about the volume number. So they publish, when they get enough papers, they put them in a volume, and it would end up on a library shelf. So that's volume number 190. And then there are the page numbers. Lastly, of course, is the title of the paper. So all these things are important for citing and referencing journal papers in Biology 107 and in most referencing formats. These are all important pieces of information. So if you do download the paper and take a look, all that information is also found at the paper, and maybe even a little bit more information. So I'll just point out what we're looking at here. There's the name of the journal, there's the year, the page numbers, you can get the volume there as well. There's the title, and notice in this case here they did it properly in that they put the genus and species name of the organism in italics, so that's proper. There's the name of the authors. You can see our full names, not our initials, and then there's also an abstract, which is of course, the summary of the paper. So what you need to do for Biology 107, particularly for Lab 3, but also for the pre-Lab 3 exercise, is cite the paper that you find. So a citation is basically a reference to something. It's referring to something, and it's doing it within the body of your essay or report. So, for example, you're going to have a sentence. That sentence is going to be talking about something that you saw in that paper. And so you write that sentence, and at the end of that sentence, you're going to have the citation. So the citation might look something like this. You can see last name and last name, comma, year. So for the paper I just showed you, this is what it would look like. Your sentence would be talking about, in that case, the bacterial cell wall, and the people referenced are Legary and Clark, the two authors. Notice I don't have their first names or their other initials, just their last names, comma, followed by the year. And the sentence doesn't end until after the brackets, so the period goes at the very end. Keep a note, look at Appendix A, lots of examples there that show you how to cite your textbook, how to cite your lab manual, and other examples as well. So just in general, there is a system depending on how many authors are in the paper. So if you have one author, it's basically last name year. So the example there you can see is Smith, comma, 2019, and bracket period. If you have two authors, you give both of their last names and the year. So I gave the example of Laguerre and Clark. Here's another example, Campbell and Lee, 2018. And if there's three or more, you're going to use the first author's name, and you're going to follow that by et al. So et al is short for Latin for et alia, and this basically means and others. And this is Latin, and anything in Latin in science we put in italics, so make sure you have that in italics. Notice the punctuation there. There's a period after al, because that's abbreviated, and then a comma like we usually do, followed by the year. So here's an example, Jones et al, comma, 2015. So that was how to cite something. Now what I want to talk about is how to put all your references into a list. Sometimes we call this the reference section of the report. In Biology 107, we're going to call it the literature cited section, meaning that you've cited them, you've referred to them, but we want a little bit more information about them. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to list your journal articles something like this. So if you take a look, we have our names of our people. So there are their initials, and their initials are punctuated with periods to show that they're abbreviated. You have the word and you're followed by the year, the title and sentence form, so that means that it's capitalized at the beginning and everything else are small letters. The journal name, the volume name is bolded with a colon followed by the page numbers. So here's my example. So you can see Laguerre, B.A., and notice, like I said, all the punctuation is important. If you do not have the punctuation properly, you will lose marks for that. There's the word and, Clark, A.J., the year 2008. The title, Interaction of Penicillin Binding Protein 2 with Soluble Lytic Transglycosylase B1 in Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful. You can ask me about it sometime if you want some more information. So notice the species name, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, is in italics, and the genus is capitalized, but everything else in that sentence is lowercase except for the first letter. So it's like a sentence. There's the name of the journal, J. Bacterial, which is abbreviated for the Journal of Bacteriology. The volume number is 190 in bold, and then of course the page numbers. So these will be given, if you have multiple references, they're going to be put in alphabetical order by the first author's last name. So just a reminder that all your punctuation, every detail here is important, that you do it properly for Biology 107, that you follow this format. Take a look at Appendix A if you really want to see some more examples and to get a better explanation of this. So let's talk about the Lab 1-2 short report. The assignment for Lab 1-2 is found at both the ends of Labs 1 and Lab 2, so you don't have Lab 2 yet, but you can take a look at Lab 1 and see what you're responsible for. So some of the questions will pertain to Lab 2, so you'll have to wait till next week to get those questions, and others questions pertain to Lab 1 and the Lab 3 pre-lab. So it looks something like this. So if you see on the left here, this is the what is required of you for the Lab 1-2 short report, and on the right, what is required of you for the Lab 3 pre-lab assignment. So this is all going to add up to 25 marks. So these are the exact questions that you need to answer and do for your Lab 1-2 short report. So you can number these questions. So you can just start off with number 1. You can put the introduction if you want, and you're going to answer this question number 1. And number 2, you're going to answer this calculation. Number 3 is some results. Number 4 is a discussion, and so on. So make sure that for each of the questions, you take a look at how many marks they are worth. Usually if it's 1 mark, that's about 1 or 2 sentences. I think of it as 1 mark as 1 complete thought. So sometimes you can express that in 1 sentence, and sometimes you might take 2. Kind of depends on who you are and how you like to write. Do answer the questions where appropriate in full sentence form. That's what's expected of you for this report. So it's typed up and sentence form. So I just want to show you one example question here. So question 4, it says, based on your observations from Lab 1 environmental survey, which environment contains the greatest number of bacteria, the least bacteria, which contains the greatest diversity, the least. So I told you before that you need to be specific and describe things well. So this example I'm going to show you doesn't answer the whole question, just part of it, but let's take a look at these examples I have here. It says, which is better? First, the doorknob had the most bacteria and the floor had the least, or the swab of the doorknob of the chemistry lab produced 55 colonies representing the tested area with the greatest number of bacteria. So I think it's obvious that the second one is better. The first one doesn't tell me that much. It certainly tells me that you had more bacteria on the doorknob, more than the floor, but how many more? Was it 100 more, 1,000 more, 2 more? It's not specific enough. So make sure that you are specific, and you can see that's one way to do it. Obviously, this doesn't answer everything. It doesn't answer the diversity, and it doesn't answer the least. So for this is 4 marks, so you might need 4 sentences to answer this question fully.